Welcome to Thotis University. Today we will be interviewing an international student from MiM program at HEC. Welcome. Can you introduce yourself?
Hello, thank you so much for having me today. So my name is Rosette Joseph. I'm Lebanese American and I'm an MiM student at HEC University in my second year, specializing in strategic management.
So what made you choose this field of study and HEC?
Coming from Lebanon and growing up in Lebanon, I think HEC never needs an introduction. So it's a well-known university, not just in France, not just in Europe, but all over the world. So when I decided that I want to go on and do my master's, I wanted something that's very important to add on my CV as a name. So this is why I chose HEC, specifically this master's. So I have a background in engineering, and I knew that one day I wanted to do something in business because, in my opinion, I think that no matter what bachelor's you do in life, you should always have some degree in business because it opens a lot of doors. I knew that I wanted to study engineering just so that I can have this good bachelor's degree, but top it off with a business degree, which is like the cherry on top. I came to HEC, I saw what kind of specializations they have, and strategic management was something that growing up I was always curious. So how do businesses succeed? Why do businesses make these decisions? Why is it that, for example, this business is always on top, no one is able to compete with it? I had this thought in my head of curiosity of how do businesses think and plan what they do. So this is why I specifically chose strategic management, and in HEC it's one of the also top ranked in the world.
Have you always planned to study in France, or why did you choose to study in France over other countries?
Okay, so there's a personal reason while growing up I chose France, and then other more technical reasons. So the first one is actually a cute story. So when I was younger at school, I think we were around 13 years old. When you first turn a teenager, they ask you to make a mood board of things that you wish for in your future and how you see your future is going to be like. So on my mood board, there was the Eiffel Tower and I love Paris. So one of the things that really drew me to studying in France was Paris. I'm in love with the city. It was a dream of mine to live here. So this was kind of a biased opinion for me coming here. And while I was applying to France, to HEC, that's when I actually looked back at my mood board and I was like, oh my gosh, I actually wanted to study in Paris ever since I was 13. So that's one of my personal opinions. But on the serious note, needless to say, France offers a lot of aid for students that, to my knowledge, no other country does something like this. So first of all, you have the housing assistance, which is the CAF. The government gives back a lot of your monthly rent, which is something that is very important and it really helps a lot. You have a lot of discounts for the public transportation. Anyway, to start off with, public transportation is very easy to use and it's something that really helps students not need a car. On top of that, you have a lot of discounts that you can benefit from. And third of all, I think that something that's very important is the cultural diversity in Paris and France in general also. So there are a lot of different backgrounds. You can always find your place. No matter where you're coming from, I feel like you're always welcome. You'll always find, people from where you grew up, or you'll find people that are like-minded like you, and you're also introduced to many other different cultures. So this is something that I think that is very important, especially as an international student, to come to this international environment so that you're not very shocked with the culture. So those are the three main things that really stood out to me as being a student in France.
What were your expectations about France before arriving, whether it's studying or lifestyle?
Okay, so I'd like to start with the studying part. So, I was coming to HEC, which is one of the best universities. So what I was expecting was to be in an environment with a lot of like-minded people that are very ambitious in life, that are well-rounded, and that you'll be humbled when you arrive here with the environment that you're in, so that it's going to push you to thrive, to do more and much better. So this is something that I expected, and it's actually what happened. And this is one of the reasons really also that I came here. I wanted to be surrounded by these type of people so that I'm always, exceeding my limits, pushing for more. So this is on the studying side. Something that I was really expecting was this living à la Parisienne, à la Française, going out on the weekends, living the charming Parisian life, the vibe that they're talking about in Paris. So although you hear a lot of negative things, when you think about, they say that Parisians are not very welcoming. This is something that I expected, especially because I don't speak French. However, I think that it's quite over-exaggerated. It does occur, but not that much. It just occurs maybe in the governmental institutions more than touristic areas. And in my opinion, especially after the Olympics, there has been a lot of improvement. And I can tell you just over the span of 3 months of summer, there was a lot of improvement in terms of how they're welcoming in English. So this is also something that I was expecting, and it didn't really shock me.
How did you apply to your program in France?
So I was actually in Lebanon at the time when I applied, and I came across a website called Join a School France. Actually, how it works is that you do one application for the top 5 business schools in France, and HEC was one of them. So I said that why not? In case I don't get accepted to HEC directly, I have 4 other options. And it's only for the Grande École programs, not for the specialization. The interview wasn't directly with HEC or any of the other 4 universities. It's with one institute in Lebanon called ISA. You have one interview, which is around 20 minutes. They ask you in general, like not specific university questions, and they ask you what are your top choices between those 5. That's it. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. And then after 2 weeks, they reply to you that the results are out. However, they don't specifically tell you each of the 5 university results. They give you a specific link, and you access each of the link for each of the universities to check whether you're accepted to this one or not. And then once you see the 5 results, you can pick any of the 5, and you continue directly then with the university in the process.
What kind of documents or exam tests or language tests did you have to take in order to join HEC?
The only real exam that I had to do was the GRE. So this is something that's very normal. It's a requirement, I think, in any university. It's either the GRE or the GMAT, minimum 320 on the GRE. Also, you have the little essays that you have to write, but on the spot. You don't need to really prepare them beforehand. I think there are 300 characters each, so I call them paragraphs, not essays. And the third thing are, of course, your grades, your official transcript from your undergrad degree. And that's it. So it was quite simple, not very paper heavy.
Did HEC supported you or your school during this process?
Actually, being a Lebanese, there's always an affiliation of HEC with Lebanon, specifically nowadays because there's a partnership with CMA-CGM, which is a Lebanese company, and HEC. So HEC does visit Lebanon a lot, and once they know that you're interested, once you reach out, back in the time there was someone called Wasim who was in charge of the Lebanese students. He reached out to us telling us, oh, if you're interested, HEC is hosting an event at the CMA-CGM office where you can go even if you haven't been accepted yet, even if you're in the process, or if you're looking to join HEC. You learn more about the alumni, you learn more about the program, you get the chance to meet Wasim himself and ask him further questions. You can also meet other students who have either been accepted or in the process. This really helps you in 2 ways. So first of all, if you meet someone that's already been accepted, you can ask them for tips and tricks on the application process and things so that you can really do better and learn from their experience. It also introduces you to the people that are going to be going with you. So once you arrive to HEC, you already know most of the Lebanese that are coming from Lebanon, and you can make a group already from there. So what we did personally is we met each other, we made a group, and we started going out before even coming to HEC. So you already have your little group of friends that you already know. So this is something that's very nice that HEC does, and they come many times a year. So it's nice to have, the representative over there live. I was able to meet with Wasim himself individually and ask him more questions outside of the meeting hours. So yeah, HEC was very helpful in that regard.
How would you describe the MiM program at HEC overall?
Okay, so as an overall introduction about the program, it's a 2-year program with an optional gap year. So if you decide to take a gap year, you can do the first year, which is in general management, then take a 1-year gap year, and then you come back to do your specialization. For you to be exempt from the gap year, you should have at least a minimum amount of weeks in terms of professional experience or internship. I'm not really sure about those weeks because I had overpassed them because I had already worked for a year and 8 months, around that much. So personally, I didn't do the gap year. But even if you have worked for a year and 8 months, you can still do the gap year if you want to. The whole point of taking this gap year and doing the internships is for you to know better what you really want to do in case you're confused between 2 fields, or in case that you already don't have a lot of experience on your CV. To strengthen your CV, you have this opportunity to do at least 2 6-month internships. The idea is very welcoming to students also with no prior experience and people who haven't still decided what they really want to do in their lives. So I know people, for example, that have done their first internship in luxury, their second internship in, for example, consulting. So 2 different things, and then they decide later on what they liked more. But we can go back to generally speaking. So it's a 2-year program. The first year really introduces you to basic concepts in business management. So you take a lot of range of different courses in, for example, finance, in accounting, in marketing, in the different fields of management, so that you're really well shaped and you understand more what you like and you don't like, which makes it easier for your specialization, which is in the second or third year in case you've done a gap year. So coming from an engineering background, this year was very important for me. It introduced me to a lot of new concepts. For example, I haven't done marketing before. I've never come across it. Finance, I haven't. Accounting, I have a bit. It's really split into 2 semesters, and each semester is split into 2 bimesters. So you have bimester 1, bimester 2, bimester 3, and bimester 4 from September up until the end of May. And at the end of each bimester, you have final exams or midterm exams, because you have some courses that run either along a bimester, or you have courses that run along a semester. And during your first year, you have to decide which specialization you want to do in January. This is if you're coming back directly to do your second year in HEC. If you're going to do a gap year, you decide the January during your gap year which specialization you want to do. So you apply for your top 3 choices. There are many options. You have, for example, a master's in strategic management, which is what I am studying. You have the master's in economics and finance, master's in international finance, master's in marketing, master's in data science. There are many other options, so you pick your top 3. And for each of the 3, there are specific essays that you have to write and a specific GPA you have to meet. For example, if you want to study master's in finance, of course, you need to have a good grade in the finance courses during your first year. So you apply for the top 3, and then within, I think, a month, they either interview you or they directly accept you into any of the 3 options that you have. And then you come back for your specialization in the second year. And in terms of internships, so even if you don't decide to do the gap year, you still have the choice to do a summer internship, which is what I personally did. So I did an internship from June until August, because I finished classes in May and I start classes in September. So it's still very manageable, even if you're not going to do the gap year.
So what are some of the most important classes that you had?
So I think the main 2 that I can come up off the top of my head are the finance courses and electives that I've taken to do with Excel. I think that nowadays it's very important to really have a well-rounded knowledge of everything that's going on in the world. And especially now, while we're taking this interview, what's going on is very important is in the finance world. So those courses that I've taken have really helped me understand the basics of finance. And if I read, for example, the Financial Times, which is something that's very simple, I really understand what's going on. So this is something that was very important also to help me have more conversations or understand really the political impact on finance and on the business world. As for the Excel courses, nowadays technology is everything. Everything is computerized, and Excel is becoming more and more important. And HEC gives really, really good courses on Excel. I took 2 actually, and those really helped me, especially in my internship. They teach you a lot of tips and tricks, things that make you faster in Excel, and how to solve specific problems in Excel. Those are really the 2 main courses that have really helped me learn a lot of different new things.
Can you share with us a concrete example of a project or a topic that you recently worked on?
So I'm part of the 180 Degrees Consulting Club at HEC. We work with a lot of different clients all over the world, and it's a very international club. It's not very recent, but last year we helped an NGO in Lebanon specifically work on their operations, their supply chain, their presence in the market, reaching out to people that might be interested in volunteering. So I felt like I wasn't only here studying and working and getting grades, but I was also, through this club, able to really help and learn and get introduced to different things all over the world. So you're in a team that's very culturally diverse, also with people with different backgrounds, and at the same time, you're learning a lot while you're able to help someone else. So this is something that's really stood out to me, and it's a great opportunity to join this club in HEC.
How does a typical academic week look like for you?
During the M1, you have more classes, so your week is more packed with classes when being compared to M2 specifically, maybe in strategic management, where you have less classes and more work and group work outside classrooms. So this is just a main difference between the first 2 years. In the first year, you have much more exams, Whereas in the second year, specifically in strategic management, you have more projects and group work, presentations to submit instead of exams. The classrooms are not very large. I think there's 40 students on average per class. So they're in a regular classroom, not in an amphitheater. I think that during the M1, we were a bigger cohort, whereas in the M2, we're around 100 students. Last year, we used to have, as I said, a lot more frequent classes, so nearly every day, sometimes just Fridays we don't have. Whereas this year, classes are much more relaxed, so maybe on average you can have 3 times a week classes maximum, so not really every day. And it really depends on if you decide to do electives or not. In the strategic management, you can maybe do a business project instead of electives, so you don't have any classes, for example, and you're just working on the business project from January until May.
What do you think truly makes a difference in order to succeed in your program?
So in strategic management, as I've already mentioned, it's a very intense teamwork environment. So most of the courses, your grade relies on projects that you submit with a group. So what's really important is to be able to work with a team, work with people from different backgrounds, different thought processes, different ideas, be welcoming of other ideas, you know. So for example, in the first semester of the year, the university assigns you to a team called the Learning Cell, LC, and you work with the same group of people from September till December. And in all the courses, any group that you have, it's the LC. Teamwork is very important in the strategic management. It teaches you a lot, and it's something that really makes you grow in another aspect.
So how does the teaching style differs from Lebanon to France?
One main difference I can tell, because I actually studied a bachelor's in engineering, whereas now I'm doing a master's in business, is that when you're studying engineering, you know, it's a lecture, you just listen, note down the theories, and then go practice. Whereas in business, it's more a discussion-based class. You have a lot of teachers that really want you to participate. There's a big impact of your grade on participation. So the teaching here is more like a two-way communication, whereas maybe because it was engineering, it's more like one-way. However, teachers in both Lebanon and France are very welcoming. They really listen to your needs. They really take into consideration your mental health. You can email them anytime. You can pop into their office. You can ask them before or after class. So yeah, in general, it was a great experience.
Did you need a visa to come to study in France?
Yeah, so as I said, I'm a dual nationality. I have an American citizenship also. As an American and as a Lebanese, you need a student visa to apply to France. So the process is, in Lebanon specifically, you have something called Campus de France, which is where you go and take all your documents. Of course, you need to prove that you have an undergrad degree that's accredited by Lebanon. You have to show your grades. Sometimes they ask for recommendation letters. Of course, you have to show your acceptance to the university and that you've paid the deposit. So what Campus de France does really is that they authorize that you are actually a student. So they give you just a paper at the end of the day saying that, of course, you are a student and you are actually going to France to study. And then you go to TLS, where you have to apply for the visa, and then you have more documents, which is more proof of how you're going to finance your studies, maybe previous visas that you've applied to France, and then you get your visa, your student visa.
What were some of the key administrative steps that you need to take once you arrived in France?
Usually there are a lot of administrative steps. However, HEC helps you with the main two, which are housing and insurance. So you don't really face an issue with those two. We're privileged with that. However, the banking, they do help. So banks come to campus and you can open the account while you're on campus. There are some representatives from the banks and they answer your questions to a certain extent. So with me, it actually took a long time. And it was daunting to open the bank account. And what's really confusing is that for you to be able to open a bank account, you need a phone number. Whereas for you to get a phone number, you need a bank account. So it was like, okay, what do I do? So you get a temporary phone number to be able to open the bank account. It took them quite a while, I think around 3 months for me to be able to get my card. What's important for you is to remember to cancel the number that's on your account once you have a permanent number. Another exclamation mark about banking is that as a student, you always have a limit on your spending. You have to tell the bank, okay, I want you to increase my limit for this reason. And they will increase the limit on a monthly basis. For example, I use Revolut. It's much easier and makes life simpler than the bank that I'm with.
Have you applied for any scholarships?
CMA CGM has an affiliation with HEC and they give scholarships to Lebanese students. So this is something that I was introduced to through HEC. They sent me an email saying you qualify for this scholarship since you are Lebanese, and there's also another one called Gherzouzi. So I applied for the CMA CGM, and the application process was very easy. Thanks to the company, honestly, they've really made it easy for Lebanese students to come study in HEC, and not only HEC, other universities around the world, to help you cover your housing, your tuition, and your food expense. So the amount is split into 75% for your tuition, 20% for your housing, and 5% for on-campus food and other things that you can benefit from.
How was the transition between Lebanon and France? Did you show any difficulties, any challenges?
I think, needless to say, there are a lot of Lebanese in France, and in Lebanon they speak French. Unfortunately, I don't, but I think there's a lot of cultural similarities between Lebanon and France. So it really wasn't a shock to me, especially that I grew up in Saudi Arabia. I lived there for 18 years, and it was a very culturally diverse environment. So in my school, there were around already 60 nationalities, which isn't something that you get in Lebanon. So I think in Lebanon, there were mostly only Lebanese in school and in university, whereas in HEC, there's more than 100 nationalities. So yeah, for me, it was very smooth, thanks to my childhood. So yeah, I wasn't really in shock. The only thing that really shocked me was maybe, the freedom of being yourself in France. So sometimes you see really people being whatever and whoever they want to be on the streets, wearing whatever they want, doing whatever they want. So this is something that didn't really shock. It's not a surprise, but even though you expect it to happen, once you see it happening in front of you, sometimes you can't help but maybe stare, like, oh, what's going on? But other than that, you get acquainted to it. It's part of being à la Parisienne.
You already said it a little bit, but were there any language barriers that you faced?
Okay, so unfortunately, I don't speak French. As I've already mentioned, the biggest language barrier is when you're dealing with governmental things. If you don't speak French and you're coming to France and you're not in HEC, I don't know if other universities do this, but I think it would be very difficult. For us, they were able to speak English with us. They guided us through the process. We were spoon-fed with like a golden spoon of what to do. And I still faced a few issues when going to the prefecture and trying to get my titre de séjour and speaking English. It's not a good idea. It's not the best idea to do that, especially also when calling CAF, they don't speak English.
Have you ever felt homesick?
It's a nice question, actually, after I've said that there are a lot of Lebanese in France and very similar cultures. But yes, of course, I do feel homesick, especially, I'd like to say, for example, with what was going on in the region and what was going on in my country, is that you're here in a different world, in a different universe. Everyone is like happy, you're living your life, you're studying, while if you open your phone, parallel universe. So it makes you feel like, how am I this privileged to be here, to be able to sleep, to be able to wake up and have this amazing life, whereas my parents maybe have to leave the country. They're thinking of how to book a flight to leave. Our country, people are dying. In the region, people are, facing a lot of different things. It makes you like, you're in a dilemma. Should I feel bad or should I feel blessed or should I feel happy? So yeah, I do feel homesick and I'm very patriotic and I do love Lebanon. I thank God that I got this opportunity by France to be able to study, to get this exposure, to be able maybe one day to give back to my country, Lebanon. So if it wasn't for countries like this that accept us and welcome us with open arms, I don't think that we'd be able to do things like this and live this life that we're living.
Was it easy or difficult to connect with people in France?
In my personal experience, it was very easy. I live on campus and HEC have their student residences on campus. So you're surrounded by international students. Everyone is very nice. It's very easy to make friends. It's very easy to integrate within the clubs on campus. There are a lot of clubs. Whatever you like, even if there's not a club, you can open it. So HEC really cares about this. And there are a lot of events, especially in the first 2 weeks of university, which are really icebreakers and help you meet new people even more than just in classes or in clubs. So it was very easy and it was a smooth process for me. And in a matter of 24 hours, I already had, a few friends on campus. I would text them and yeah, it was very nice.
So from what I hear, it was a smooth adaptation. So how did you adapt to the social life in France?
Generally speaking, we live on campus. So during the week, 5 days a week, we're in HEC. So our social life is really depending on what's going on in campus, and there are a lot of events, honestly. From sports events, you can do a lot of sports activities. There is a lake on campus, football field, tennis. So you can have a lot of hobbies on campus. You can also have a lot of networking events. So really, campus is something that's very lively during the week. And during the weekend, you live in one of the best cities in the world. Not in, but near it. So there's a bus, actually, the Savac bus that HEC organizes organizes for students that takes you to Paris directly instead of using public transportation. So during the weekends we're here in Paris. There's always like different groups and different friends that you can go with. HEC is really a community, and especially when you go on the Savac, you're going as students, you start to discuss on the bus what are you going to do, you take some ideas and things like that. So yeah, we really enjoy it. It's great.
What are your plans after graduation? Do you plan to stay in France, going home, or somewhere else?
So I'm actually starting a full-time job in Qatar in the Middle East in September. Whereas I finish my courses, I submit my thesis in May. So between May and September, I've decided to stay in France, explore France a bit more, and enjoy the last few moments I have here before I go to the Middle East. But for sure, I would like to come back to France sometime, maybe do a PhD degree in something, maybe another specialization. France has opened a lot of doors all over the world. It's very important to mention that it's not just you're studying in France, you're only benefiting here. A lot of networking opportunities are also all over the world in other regions.
If you could change or improve anything about your experience, what would it be?
I think that I would have taken more time to learn French before coming to France. Dad, if you're watching this, he's always been telling me learning a language is very important. It really is, and he's right. Especially in France, being able to speak French is really a plus. I wasn't able to get a good job or a good role here in the companies that I personally wanted to work at because I don't speak French. So I was really, narrowing down my opportunities, and later on in life, you don't know where you end up. So I should have taken the chance to learn French even while I was here in France.
And finally, if you had an advice for a student that is dreaming about HEC and France and Paris, what would it be?
Apply. Stop dreaming and go straight to the point, because I was dreaming about Paris and I was dreaming about HEC. My advice, my parents, the advice that they gave me, I'd give to everyone else: apply. You never know. You never know your luck. You never know. Maybe you're downgrading yourself. Even I applied in round 3, so I was like, round 3, of course not. They're not going to take me, Go for it. It's a great experience, one of the best 2 years in my life, and I don't regret it at all. And I would love for anyone that was in my position to be able to live this experience because they can. So not to listen to their thoughts of the ifs and maybes and things like that. So I was blessed that I have amazing parents that really pushed me and told me, go for it, so go for it.
Thank you very much, Rosette, for your experience, your thoughts and everything, and see you soon on Thotis.
Thank